So, good morning, everybody. Today, I have a very special guest with me. My client, Christa Burnett, is here to talk about her experience inside of the anti-arthritis method program that I run. And I just think it's so important that we do these things so that you're not just hearing from me what I could possibly do for you, but you're actually hearing from real live people who are clients and have gone through the process with me. So you can hear things just from their perspective. So thank you so much, Christa, for agreeing to do this today. I really appreciate your perspective and your time.
Oh,
And
of
like I
course.
said, I think this is so important for others to hear perspectives from actual clients. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm excited to be here. Sure.
Wonderful. So, one of the first questions I always ask Christa is, what kind of challenges were you experiencing with your arthritis before joining the program? So, could you give us a little background if you don't mind?
Sure. So, way back, I had JA. So when I was a kid, I had arthritis, and I was really fortunate that it went into remission when I was 15. So I was arthritis free for a very long time. And then through the miracles of COVID, massive inflammation for me happened. That was unfortunately one of the side effects for my body. And I've been playing the roller coaster ever since. And it all started back in early 2020. Um, Multiple medications, multiple doctors, just kind of the whole thing, going around in the circus of medicine and trying to figure out what the best thing is for me. And I just wasn't happy with the answers I was getting. One of my doctors looked at me one day and said, "Well, we may be dealing with a misdiagnosis. I guess I'll see you next time." And I was shocked. I was like, "Okay, if you say that, don't you want to maybe try and figure out what we could be dealing with?" And I got really, really nervous about that. I did find another doctor who it was not a misdiagnosis, but they also weren't happy with the care that I was getting. And it was around that time that I had kind of started talking with you. But the challenges I was experiencing with that, I had massive inflammation in my hands. I couldn't write. It really hurt. One of my wrists was really bad. I had massive fatigue. I couldn't get through the day. Um, and I have two little kids. So that was really difficult for me. It was difficult for my husband too, because we couldn't figure out why. I just had no energy at all, none. Um, yeah. And it hurt to move. Like that was really difficult, and especially when you have little kids watching you. I don't want them to see mommy hurting. I don't want them to see any of that. I want to be the best that I can be for them.
Absolutely.
Speak to you out.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. And I feel like your story is so similar to some of the other clients that I've worked with. We all have kind of those unique differences, but it seems to always have a similar thread that runs through. Like we all want to have that quality of life, and who wants to hurt when they move? And how exhausting is that, right? So yeah, I completely understand and can relate to where you're coming from too. And Krista, at that time, like what did you try and do on your own to manage the symptoms and the pain that you were having?
I mean, we were on doing medication. We were doing, I was trying any kind of anti-inflammatory, anything. I tried, going gluten free. I tried going, trying to not eat nightshades. I tried, and certain things kind of helped. I mean, I really went to my gut health. Like there was a study that I had read about, the balance in your gut and that being a trigger and all this stuff, and I work with a functional practitioner, but my gut is actually in really good shape.
Mm.
so, so that was not a fruitless effort. I think that still can help, like when you're eating better, but I tried all kinds of different things. And I would wake up some mornings and think, oh, wait, I feel better. I think today's it. Maybe this is it, only to be derailed by something later on in that day or a couple days afterwards. So to me, it became very clear that it was something I was eating, but I couldn't figure out what. And any test that I took, if it was a blood test or anything, came back with these results that it wasn't right. And I knew it wasn't right, so it was just really frustrating to go through so many different things to try and figure it out on my own because we're all stubborn, right? We want to be able to do the things on our own. It's hard to admit that we need help sometimes. Um, but yeah, I mean, I tried so many different things.
Yeah. And I think that's such a good point about like the different food sensitivity tests and
Yeah.
allergy tests and things like that. There's a big difference between a food allergy and food sensitivity. Food
Mhm.
allergies are very obvious. You're like when they do those little skin prick tests, you just automatically your skin will react, or you have a very quick, obvious reaction if you consume a food that you're allergic to, that there's no question about it. But food sensitivities are so tricky because it can take a few days before they even, we even react to a food. And it's a lot more subtle a lot of the time than just that immediate reaction. And so it's really, really hard to pinpoint. And there's such a huge range of food sensitivity tests out there. And they all kind of vary in terms of how they work and their accuracy. I know I've used them before, and
Yeah.
I thought that the results were pretty bizarre. So, and
I did
it
too.
didn't ring
Yeah.
true to me either,
Right.
unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah.
What before I started working with you, things that I had kind of pinpointed and going through this process, it's true for me. And this is just showing how different, even though we're all built of the same things and we have the same components in our body and visibly we look similar, the chemistry inside for each of us can be that different, which is fascinating to me. So for me, my reactions, I'm going to knock on wood, I haven't had any major reaction like when I'm eating something or a day during that day or the day after. For me, it happens between days 3 and 5.
Mm.
Like if I get through that day 3, I'm feeling pretty good, but once I get to day 5, I have yet again, knock on wood, to have something affect me up to day 7. So for me, I've found it really is those 3 to 5 days. And that's where
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited when I'm reintroducing things.
Yeah.
Um, but it's fascinating because I do know other people who they have a reaction almost instantly. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and I'm like, well, that stinks, but that's could be beneficial because I mean, but it's just again like how different we all are with it. So it's
Yeah.
just it's fascinating in that way to me.
Absolutely. And what one of the main things about the program is you get really in tune with your body
Yeah.
and how it responds, how it feels, how it works, and learning those differences. So yeah, that's a great point. And Krista, can you tell me when you were back trying all these different things on your own, were you having any success, partial success with some of the things that you were doing, whether it was like the medications or the food eliminations? Any successes that you were having or partial successes?
Yeah. And so one of the things I tried, I do believe in moving our bodies a lot. I am a I have been a not a personal trainer, but I have taught group fitness classes. I do hold that certification. I
Mhm.
do work quite a bit. But one of the things I did focus on, I mentioned, was gut health. And I did do a protocol. It was like a 30-day thing. And it focused on, it wasn't the whole 30, but it was something similar. And it focused on, more whole foods, more protein, more vegetables, less carbohydrates, less grains, those types of things.
Mhm.
Um, and I, out of everything that I tried, I did notice the biggest change for me while I did that. And
Mhm.
I noticed in my energy level. I did notice, like, specifically, it was one of my fingers on my right hand was swelling, and I had a trigger finger going situation happening, and that kind of went away, not totally, but a little bit.
Mhm.
I think through that, I did eliminate a lot of the foods that could potentially trigger my system. But again, I wasn't pinpointing
Mhm.
it. So, and once I was off of that 30 days, there was a whole like reintroduction that you were supposed to go through, and I kind of did it, but I didn't really do it, and then so did it work, did it not work? I don't really know. There's a lot too that I think, we want things to work and we want them to make us feel better.
Yeah.
So I think, again, I was probably looking at any minuscule thing to say that it was working at that point,
Yeah.
because I was a lot of pain at that point, and that was the whole reason for me to try it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's kind of,
Mm.
it was helping, but not getting you
Yeah,
quite as far as you would have hoped,
hmm,
given like kind of the effort you were putting in, it sounds
right,
like.
right.
Yeah. Now, I always like to ask this question to my clients. What kind of hesitations did you have before joining the anti-arthritis method program? Because I know everybody, before entering something and making big changes, there's usually some hesitation. So do you mind sharing some of your own that you had before joining the program?
Yeah, I was scared. I think with anything, and like I said, I had tried so many different things, um, and I was really scared. I was scared that I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think I would have the willpower to do it myself, because there are four of us in my house. I'm the only one who was going to be doing this, so I had a lot of hesitation because it was the fear of the unknown, you know. It is, like it is a monetary cost. Like that's another part. Like if you're going to pay money, you want to know that it's going to work. So I think there was some of that back and forth in my brain too. But I think the biggest part was fear that I would fail, and fear that I wouldn't be able to. Like it was on me. A lot of it was I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be able to handle it. I wouldn't be able to follow the program. I wouldn't be able to. Like it was a lot of doubt for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing and being honest about that because I think sometimes we don't realize that fear that's holding us back. And I think most of us have that about anything that we're going to undertake and, invest any time or money or like effort into it. And I think just knowing that that's what it was is really, really important because we can't do anything or change anything if we don't really acknowledge what's holding us back. And do
Right.
you remember what made you decide to join the program and to like, was there something that shifted in your mind or changed your way of thinking that got you past that fear?
No, no. It really was the hearing what my doctor was saying, the specific medication that I was on at that point. It made me feel awful.
Mm.
Was and and at that point, the answer was to just increase the medication, which was just going to make me feel even worse and more and just awful and gross and lose 1 or 2 days every week to just feeling awful. Um, and I just didn't, I just, after talking with you and hearing your story and talking through the steps of the program and talking with my husband, it really just became what have I got to lose? Like I have tried everything else, but here's somebody that's done it. There's a proven way to do it, but I can't get in my own way. But it didn't shift. I went into it with all those fears, and none of that was gone. None of it was. I just knew that I needed to give this a try. And I knew that if I didn't, I would just sit there in the cycle of maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it was also, I knew I would be changing doctors. I knew what the next steps would be. So I felt like it was kind of for me, it was a now or I wasn't never going to do it kind of a thing.
Yeah, I love that. It's kind of feeling the fear and doing it anyways. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that I don't know if it's something that happens as we get older and kind of more set in our routines and things that we're less likely to take those risks. Because I know in my 20s, oh my goodness, I was so brave. I don't know about you, but I used to think that I could do anything I put my mind to, or at least that's, I think that when we're young, the, world hasn't kind of beaten us down as much,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and we have that optimism where I think sometimes, as we go through life, sometimes we lose a little bit of that. But I think it's so important to remember that, there's so much that we still can do, and having a little bit of that faith and optimism in ourselves is so important. So I applaud you for, doing it anyway, because
Thank you.
it's
Thanks.
scary. It
It
absolutely.
is scary. Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think was the first thing you noticed about the anti-arthritis method program that helped you?
My energy level.
Yeah.
I think the first thing that came back, and this was within the first week and a half, was my energy level shifted. And I started to have more, and I started sleeping better. Like even like it's fascinating to me. Even there's nights that you think you sleep well because you may not wake up, but whatever is happening in your body is not really allowing your body to rest. And so you wake up and you still feel that fatigue, right? So like in my situation, and I'm sure in a lot of other folks, it is my overactive immune system fighting that battle 24 hours a day, that even when I'm sleeping, there's all of that happening that isn't allowing my body to get the rest that it needs, right? So for me, that was the first thing. And that was, and once I had that, I really expected everything else just to happen right away. And then I got really frustrated, like about 3 weeks in, that I wasn't seeing all of these results that other people were seeing, but in reality, yeah, I was, because the energy was there, which was a huge part of it. Granted, it took a lot longer for me to see more physical relief in a lot of ways. Having the amount of energy to get me through the day without having to have 3 or 4 cups of coffee is huge, So it was really funny to me. I mean, that's a very long answer to like your initial question, but yeah, my energy level was the first thing that I noticed, and that was a pretty quick one for me.
That's awesome. I hear that a lot. That's usually one of the first things that people notice come back is that energy level. Yeah, for sure. And I love that you shared that you did get frustrated at one point because you're like, hey, like these other group members are, their pain is subsiding, they're having all these like quick wins, and yours were taking a little bit longer, because we had talked earlier about how everybody's chemistry is so different.
Yeah.
And and sometimes we can get into that little bit comparison game with some of the other members in the group, and everybody like kind of improves in their own time. But I remember the one time you posted in the group, your fingers had the swelling was going away, and that was so exciting. And can you share a little bit more about like how far into the process did you notice that?
When that was last month, so it was about 3 months. 3 months in the process. And we had gone away for the weekend to one of our nephew's first birthdays. And we came home, and on the drive home, I got to not drive, my husband. And so I was sitting in the car and I looked down at my hands, and it's just, there was such a stark difference for the last year and a half, 2 years, especially with this middle finger on my right hand. I couldn't wear rings. I couldn't wear my jewelry, which I have a lot of, and I like to wear rings on my middle finger. It's something that I've just always done. And there's one ring that my best friend and I bought when we were in New York one time. We went to Tiffany's and we each bought this silver Tiffany just ring, and that's just a reminder of that trip for us. And I haven't been able to wear that ring in over 2 years. And I remember looking at my finger on that drive home and being like, I wonder. It's like, it just looks like it looked really close to my left one. I was like, and we came home and I went straight for it and I put it on. And it's not perfect. There are still some days that it doesn't go on, and I'm still a little too swollen in the morning for it to go on initially, but most days I can get that on. And a few months ago I couldn't, and prior to a few months ago, that had not fit on my finger for almost 2 years at this point.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's small, sometimes you don't even realize that it's but for me, that was a really big thing. And I posted it in the group because everyone in this group would understand what a win that is. Other people were like, that's great. If you can wear a ring on your finger, big deal, but it was a big deal, and it still is a big deal, and I am at this point able to start wearing some. I don't have any on right now. But I'm able to put them on and wear them throughout the day. I went to a show with my daughter over the weekend and I had a ring on my finger the whole time. And that was a big thing for me. I haven't done it in a while. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
And Christa, what stood out for you that was different about the anti-arthritis method program that was like different from some of the other things that you've tried or some of the other processes?
I wasn't alone. I think the biggest thing here is you have the support. You have we have a group. You have it, it's a very detailed plan. If you follow the plan, you should see results. You should be able to. It's going to be different for everybody. I mean, and I think that was the thing. And I remember you had told me, you're like, some people see results within a few weeks, others it takes a few months. I was more on that few months spectrum, which was frustrating. It was so frustrating. But I stuck with it because I knew, I was like, I'm this far into it. If I derail now, I'm throwing away all of that work. And the thing is, like, you can't see the work that is happening, right? Like, we're talking about internal change and happening inside our bodies. So when you can't physically see the change, that makes it really hard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that this is such a detailed plan and you have the support. And then that was the thing, is anything else that I had tried up to this point was on my own. And I was doing the guesswork, or I was reading the book, or I was, right? But with this, yes, you read all the materials and you do all the work, but you have people to help you if you get stuck. You have people to suggest recipes. The recipes are one of my favorite things to try. Snuck some in on my family, and they've had no idea that they are gluten-free or AIP compliant or any of those things, which to me is a huge win. And the biggest ones, my family has this huge sweet tooth. I somehow do not. I don't know why. I mean, going through this process, that is one of the things I never craved, which I found really interesting. But one of the things I did get some carob powder, and I made my own chocolate with powder and coconut oil, and some other, like, whatever seasonings and flavor, whatever thrown in. And my husband ate it one day. He just grabbed it because it was in the refrigerator, and he grabbed a piece and he ate it. And he was like, "This is really good." I said, "What is this?" And I said, "Carob." I'm like, "It's not really chocolate, it's carob." And he was like, "I think I like this better than chocolate."
Oh, wow.
It is. I said, "There it is." And he's a chocolate fiend. So so it's finding those things, to me, is really exciting to be able to kind of throw that in. Because I don't want, I mean, the biggest thing for me, I don't want to be making two different meals at dinner time. I want to make one meal that we can all enjoy together. And we do. We've changed seasonings. We've found seasonings that work for me, and as I'm adding things back in, we get to be a little more exotic again, which is great. But we did, I mean, maybe for that first couple of weeks while I was really figuring it out, we kind of did. But most of the time, if they have a pasta or rice, I just have a different side, or I have the vegetables and I just omit that from my meal. Or, there's different ways for me to play with it, but I'm not making two different meals every night. I'm still able to eat things with my family, which that's a big thing for me. And sure, there's some things that we're just not eating right now. But I don't think anybody really misses anything. So I think it's kind of a win for us.
Absolutely.
But the recipes are a big part that I really enjoy about the group too.
No, I'm glad that that's working out for you guys, because I think sometimes people are so afraid. They're like, I'm not gonna be able to eat anything that I like, and I'm gonna hate the food, and it's gonna be like this awful diet where I'm eating boiled chicken and rice cakes or something terrible.
No, it's not. And I think, but I do, you're right. That's the fear of it. The fear of it is there. But once you realize, again, the support that you have, I mean, people guided me to different websites with different, like, packaged foods if you're traveling. I think that was a big test for me too. I went on a work trip in September, and at that point I was about eight or 9 weeks into the program, and that was a big test for me to be able to travel and eat out and do those types of things, right? I took some packaged foods with me. I did make some bread, and I had that in my suitcase, and I took those, I took some things with me so I knew that I would be okay, but I didn't have to eat most of it, because once you start like rewiring your brain a little bit about what is okay for you to eat versus what you shouldn't eat, you know, and as you're kind of figuring all of that out, I was fine. I went to the conference, I ate out almost like every day, at least one meal every day, and it was fine. I found a Whole Foods, I grabbed a salad, you know, like it was a good test for me, but it really showed me that in the real world, I can do this, and it's far more common than I think.
Yeah.
That was the other thing I think that I became very attuned to or aware of is the amount of other people who are following a similar eating plan for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it may not be arthritis, but they have like a good friend of mine who I never knew has an autoimmune disorder. And so she does something very similar. She was at the conference and we had many discussions about it. And I ate with her a few times because it was easy because we knew we would be around somebody in a similar situation, you know. So I think that was another eye-opening thing is you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not, you know, and once you start talking about it and you're open to the process, you'll realize how many other people around you are facing something similar.
I love that. And Christa, my last question, and I think one of the most important questions is, we've heard about how your hands have the swelling has diminished. Mm-hmm. Tell us what else has changed for you? What's gotten better? What's improved? How are you feeling now?
Yeah, I feel great. It's different. I mean, I don't need a nap during the day to sustain my day. I think one of the most eye-opening things to me, I am a coffee fan. I love coffee. I worked for Starbucks for a number of years. Coffee is one of my vices, which I've always said, hey, if that's my worst vice in life, I think I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't need coffee to get through my day, which is mind-blowing to me. Mm-hmm. Still enjoy coffee and I drink it. I think last week, I had a cup every day. And then this week I'm back to some matcha, you know, but like there are mornings that I feel like matcha is just a better choice for me. And I never thought I would say that. So that's been a real learning experience and learning curve for me. Which is funny. People are like, what? Christa, you no coffee? What? I was like, I know it's mind boggling to me. But I really think through this process, I've found that coffee definitely affects my sleep. Mm-hmm. I don't know what else it affects, but I think that for me is the biggest one. I do think if I drink it too often, I do think I start seeing that effect. That's been a fun one for me. But in my energy level, again, like I don't think I've had this much energy since before I had my kids, which any parent out there is going to say parents are just tired. And yes, it's true, but there has been a shift for me and I'm able to keep up with my 5 and 8-year-old and I'm able to do the things with them and go and experience things that a few months ago, I just wouldn't have even tried.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's the biggest one. The joints, the swelling, the movement is all getting better. It's still not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than it was a few months ago. And I'm just holding to that and I'm just going to keep going with it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it took my body how long to get to this point as far as having those symptoms. So I think I'm keeping the mindset of it took my body how long to get there. So it is going to take it a while for it to get back. Yeah. Completely. Right. Like it's not instantaneous. It's not something that's going to happen just miraculously in one day. So yeah, so I'm just going to keep going and keep experimenting with things. And there's days where I'm going to have a win. There's days where I might not. And I think all of it just has to be taken in stride and just as a learning process and seeing what works for me.
Yeah, I love that because it is, I think once we get rid of that, I think I call it the white knuckling mindset, because sometimes people start and they're so anxious to like be done before they even get going because they're
Yeah.
like, this is going to be so hard. But I think it's that shifting your mindset as you go, seeing those results as you go that kind of, I think, keep you going. And then realizing that this is something you're incorporating into your life for the long term. And it's, it is a process, but it's worth it in the end. And your body knows what to do. It just needs that extra support and that consistency. And yeah, and I always say it's so amazing when we can look back on, okay, well, what was day one and where am I now? Because like you said, the changes can be happening gradually. And sometimes you don't realize until you look down at your hands and realize, oh, like I can wear my ring again. So yeah, well, that makes so much sense. And again, Christa, thank you so much for coming on today and
No, of course.
sharing your story. I just think it's so important for the people to hear what it's like. And is there anything else that you haven't shared that you think is important for everybody to know? Or did we cover everything?
I think we covered everything, but I guess I would want to say, like, if you are having, I just hope something that I said resonated with somebody. And if you are that person that is just really not sure and recognize that fear, but choose to go forward anyway, because the only thing you have to fear is failure. And once you get going, failure honestly is not an option on this. It just is. You just have to commit to it, and you have to be strong enough. If you're around other people who are saying you're just crazy, you have to be strong enough to say, you may think that I'm crazy, but you don't know how I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I've said that a few times to my husband. He's like, oh, come on, loosen up, just try it. And I'm like, no, I won't. I'm not going to try that, because the last time I tried that, I hurt, and I'm okay with that, and I don't need it.
Yeah.
So I think you just have to believe in yourself, take that leap of faith, and know that with this program, you're not alone. Because that was the biggest thing for me, is that having the support from all angles was huge.
Amazing. Yeah, I agree. So important.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Christa. I so appreciate your time and your experience, your story. And I know that it will resonate with anybody who is listening to this, because you have so many amazing things to share. And like you said, you're not alone. Other people really do understand how you're feeling, and we get it. So reach out if you have questions. I'm more than happy to answer them for you. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day. And thanks again, Christa. I'm sure we'll talk soon. We'll see you in the group.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.